This is lesson 401, right triangle trigonometry. On the ACT, there are 4 trigonometry questions. 2 of them deal with right triangle trigonometry, otherwise known by the great acronym Sohcahtoa. Let's take a look at the board. I've drawn a 3, 4, 5 triangle. In the 3, 4, 5 triangle, I've also labeled 2 angles, angle X and angle Y. X is the angle we're going to deal with now and look at sine of x, cosine of x, and tangent of x. The sine of x, so, is equal to its opposite side, the side that doesn't form the triangle, over the hypotenuse. The sine of x is equal to 3 over 5. The cosine of x deals with the angle that is adjacent to the x and its hypotenuse, and that's going to be 4 over 5. So Sohcahtoa, toa is tangent, opposite over adjacent, which is 3 over 4. Sohcahtoa is pretty easy to deal with, and they take 2 twists on it. One is the reciprocal trig function, one is the inverse function. Reciprocal trig functions look just like trig functions, and I don't know what they're used for in modern math anymore because we don't really need them, but in ancient times they must have. And what do they look like? They look like this. The cosine's reciprocal function is called the secant. And instead of being the adjacent over the hypotenuse, it is its reciprocal, the hypotenuse over the adjacent. The sine's reciprocal function is called the cosecant, and it is the hypotenuse over the opposite. The tangent's reciprocal function is the cotangent, and it is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. In our 3, 4, 5 triangle, the cosecant of x is equal to the hypotenuse 5 over the opposite, 3/5. The secant is the hypotenuse 5 over the adjacent 4, and the cotangent is the adjacent 4 over 3. Gets pretty tricky. Let's take a look at the final thing they do, which is the inverse function. What they do here is they give you the sides of the triangle, and they want you to solve for the angle. What you do is you take the sine inverse of the sine of x degrees equals the sine inverse of 3 over 5. You type this into your calculator and you do it in your trig class. On the ACT, all they ask you to do is recognize the setup of the inverse. But we're going to go ahead and solve it here. In your calculator, type in sine inverse 3 over 5. And you're going to get, rounded to the nearest tenth, 39.6. So the inverse sine of 3 over 5 is 39.6. The inverse cosine of y is also the cosine inverse of 3 over 5, and that will give us y is equal to 53.1. 53.1 and 36.9 is 90 degrees. This is setting up the inverse. So what do they ask us? Sohcahtoa, the reciprocal functions, and the inverse functions. That's lesson 4.1, 401, trigonometry.